welcome to the Policy Times afternoon show, India Policy Show. It's a unique show where we pick a very important theme or issue or subject and we discuss left, right, center, what is going on. I think there are only two most important issues across the world where economists, health professionals all are talking about. One, how to stop coronavirus from spreading and to recover from it. The other, how to save the economy. I think the entire world is in a trade-off, and now we are on the verge to decide that how to manage healthcare at the same time how to manage the economy. To talk on this, I'm really glad to introduce two experts who are joining us, one from Nepal and another from United Kingdom. Dr. Elvis Hernandez, who is the founding partner and executive director, OSL risk management, so based in United Kingdom. Dr. Hernandez, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Resham Thapa, he is the assistant professor, Central Development of Economics at Tribhuvan University, and he is also a research fellow in many of the think tanks and organizations. He is a research fellow at Global Institute for Interdisciplinary Studies, GIIS in short we call, in Nepal. And shortly we will be joined by Professor Ujjwal K Chowdhury and James J. Nedumpara. He is the professor and head at Center for International Trade and Investment Law, CTIL, under Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Now, just to give a small background, I think I'll come back to our viewers and to our experts that United States Department of Labor has recently announced that the earlier estimate before April was that 3.3 million people have applied for unemployment benefit. By the first week of April, when we talk, this is 28th of April, so now the situation is more grievous. But first week of April, the total 6.6 million people claimed for job. This was this is one of the historic heights, given that the last unfathomable record was 695,000 in 2000 in 1982. The many financial experts, according to the MIT Technology Review, it says that the American GDP will contract by 30% to 50% by this summer. And we have seen the World International Monetary Fund report. They have given a huge count of how different countries, they have revised the GDP growth of different countries, and they have given that many of the advanced economies will have or will witness a negative growth, while India and China will be the only ones who will have a positive growth among the major economies. Talking about the smaller economies, maybe in South Asia or in ASEAN, though most of them will witness a zero growth or 0% growth, but they will also be there. So today, since last couple of weeks, we have been discussing whether the world is in recession or not. Today, we will try to understand that it is evident very much that the entire world is in recession. Now, how to recover from it? And in every recession, there is a hero, and there is an economy which revived the world economy. Now, at this juncture, sitting here, who will revive the global growth? Is it the United States? Is it the Europe? Is it India? Is it China? Is it ASEAN? Is it South Asia? Or is it entire Asia in overall? So to talk on that, may I now request and introduce Dr. Elvis. I want to come to first. What is the situation in United Kingdom in general, in specific, and Europe in general, from the healthcare point of view, containing the disease, as well as from the economic point of view?
Well, to keep the conversation quite open and flexible, in United Kingdom, still the coronavirus break is still difficult for not only the economy, also for the society. The number of deaths are around 21,000, which is a really, really interesting number. The government has been doing an interesting opening communication channels, trying to know affect too much the national health system, introducing this working for home, stay at home policy, which is an interesting area because, as you know, trying to avoid the situation that happened in Italy and Spain, especially when the national health system, the hospital collapsed totally. We in general business, into the business perspective, we are still working from home. The government has also implemented really massive policies to help SMEs, allowing companies to follow people. Doesn't mean a lot of employees that are not participating directly in the economy, in the commercial transaction of the companies. Of course, they have the flexibility to be at home and receiving at least around 80% of the salary, which is an interesting degree of freedom for companies that are managing the situation. Of course, the problem right now from the company's perspective is what is going to happen after this outbreak. Are we going to continue receiving the support from the government? Of course, right now, as you know, from any economic perspective, we are receiving money money today from government, but sooner or later there is no free lunch. We have to pay. So, what are the strategy in terms of fiscal policy, monetary policies? What are the implications? Of course, we need to continue tracking really close the economy, especially to visualize what are the future implications. Definitely, the world economy is going to experience a recession. There is no doubt about that one. But at the same time, right now, in the global perspective, is not managing the problem of coronavirus. Is recession, is the oil and gas prices, the crash in the oil and gas sector, which is an interesting area as well, that is adding certain systemic risk to this coronavirus issue. Yes,
Right.
yes.
Excellent. Dr. Thapa, I want to come to you with the very simple question. What is the situation in Nepal? And how do you see South Asia as a region, pushing this global growth?
Thank you, Akram. Uh, as you know, like it is
Is
corona is a
adding
global pandemic now. It touches everywhere. Only the intensity is different. And situated in between like China and India geographically, then we really were scared, and it was a horrible situation in my country as well because we are dependent on tourism, so a lot of international flights. On top of it, our GDP, our economy is predominantly remittance dependent. Kind of a quarter of GDP comes from remittance as such, and just almost 20 major countries are there, and where our foreign employment, is based on. So a lot of returnees from those countries as well. So kind of contamination from outside, not only economically only, is a disease as well. We identified new area of cost of remittance, like cost of tourism and cost of remittance from this kind of contamination as well. So thanks to our government, though quite late, but we really stopped those international flights and locked the border from south and north. We have only two borders, so easy to control as well. We are quite far from mainland China. It's very far, I would say, 13,000 kilometers far from Beijing, but a few thousand kilometers only from India. Like we border very densely populated states from India, so kind of we were very, you know, if we were in the verge of like hotspot of outbreak. However, till date we have 52 infections, and out of them 16 already recovered. It's infection, it looks comfortable and it's all right, but any minute it can go viral. So we are cautious about it. Since 6 weeks or so, we are totally in a lockdown situation. Small economy, like only 30 million billion GDP economy, so it's a small economy. However, when being a small, then the big share of it goes to the recovery or kind of or the kind of preparation kind of issues. And we saw real face our health system as well. We were not that prepared, and we are preparing very well. Is it no zero death? Now, relating to the South Asia, as we know, that's by population and by geography, we are vast, but it signals a little bit like we are not that connected like what we should be. That's how cross-border contamination looks very less relative to the Europe. However, all the economies are really struggling to fight against it, being a bigger geographically, population-wise, and in many sense, bigger economy out of South Asia. India is infected hugely, and Indian policy regarding this corona fight and economy as well, it is going to be detrimental in South Asia. And till date, it looks like Indian government is really pushing hard to control it. Hope for the best. That's what I can say till date.
Excellent. Indian government has enacted a lot of policy measures to boost the growth. What now? I want to come to the crucial part of it that as the main theme of the discussion today. IMF report we have seen. The IMF recent forecast was more relevant than any other forecast that has ever come, and at a very crucial time when the entire world is hit by this pandemic. Now, according to this report, India and China will be only economies which will witness a slightly positive growth. Rest all economies, whether it is United States, whether it is other countries, European countries, or many other parts of the world, even ASEAN, the ASEAN belt, which is also a very big global growth booster, will also witness zero growth, which is huge and a huge in terms of its impact to the global growth. Now, the very crucial question I want to come to both of you: who do you think in every such incident, one or two economy will have to play a crucial role to revive the world growth? In 2008 and 9, we have seen that when the entire world was in recession, or maybe if when America was in recession, it is China which led the growth, uh, the world growth during then. India and other countries, ASEAN also helped revive the growth. China invested around $530 billion bailout package for its country, where America or Europe did around 100 billion or 150 billion, something. So China was extremely proactive then. Now considering this, because this is an unprecedented incident in the international history, in the global history, who do you think between whichever country, like be it Japan, China, ASEAN, India, South Asia, or Asia overall, or America, who can revive the global growth? Maybe Dr. Thapa, you can start and then I'll come to that.
All right, fine. Thank you, Akram. It's like a big question, $1 million question. This is what we call $1 million question, I guess. So we have to let's start like a optimistic way, right? So it's a very we are passing through a very dark time these days. So let's be more optimistic and let's think a positive way. So while we talk about growth, and we have to think in two ways. One is really sources of growth approach, as Dr. Elvis knows very well about it. Then what were the sources of growth for these identified economies, as you noticed before? That is one way of thinking about it. And another one is growth diagnostic approach. Methodologically, if I'm becoming very technical, sorry for that, then we have to diagnose from where the source growth comes from. Then in both the ways, now we have to divide it in time frame as well. We shouldn't forget our past, how we did before. And basically you have to think like a potential to growth. It means potential power and kinetic power kind of thing. So who has the potential? We have to think one way in that way of thinking, potential to growth and lead. And the one is everybody want to lead, right? But you have to have those equipments. Now, having said this, what happens is we have to distinguish a little bit then previous whatever we say crisis, financial crisis and economic crisis. 1930s crisis, I would say it is Great Depression or economic crisis. 2008-9 crisis, it is financial crisis only. It was even not economic crisis to me, right? That was financial crisis as well. So those leading economies, right, from US to China to India, the impact was external as well internal for big economies like India, China, and the US, and most of the European countries. For other developing countries, that was external shock only. Internally, like Nepal and most of the Asian countries, the damage or potential to damage was very less. That's how in the recovery package for 2008-9 crisis was different. Now, one more dimension at least, if not more dimensions added, that it is external shocks are coming to India, China, US, Nepal, Portugal, England, everywhere. On top of it, internal shock as well. We are losing our aggregate supply as well. We are losing our domestic consumption as well. Or we are having certain breaks in logistic and supply chain as well. That's how not only the capacity to invest, not only like managing the external shocks, not only the dollar power, like US and China in general plays the dollar power exchange thing, the
Right.
whoever smartly plays the internal crisis management as well, internal economic policies management as well, and that dimension is also playing important role. So little bit time we have to spend to think about it, whether China can better manage their internal problems. I'm not saying political problems now, like economic problems, or how prepared India looks like to manage their internal problems instead of external shocks. Then that is going to play major role whether to play the role in global stature like China played in previous financial crisis, and now as well looks like we are serious behind it. I just reviewed a couple of policies, how China is approaching, how India is approaching, and in the later other questions we can talk about it. So that's how while talking about who is going to lead, then we have to think one more dimension at that time. So let's think that way, I would say. So to
Exactly.
me, definitely Asia. We'll clarify more. Sorry, Elvis.
Yeah,
Definitely Asia.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dr.
Uh,
Elvis, your point of view on who.
Yeah, I like the Resham's approach of analyzing the project, the problem holistically in different dimension. Okay, but we need to talk a little bit. My short answer is China and India are going to play an important role in bringing the world economy back. Okay, the only point here I would like to add is from the risk management perspective. Okay, China before coronavirus, before COVID-19, was experiencing one of the biggest tariff war
Absolutely.
between America and China.
Right.
Okay, that was massive. That is something that is not going to change. Okay, the other component that I would like to add is the area of reputational risk. Okay, which is the new branding behind this coronavirus. You know how, imagine that countries are like they work as a company, let's say as a macro company. Okay,
Right.
if something happened that is hampering the brand, also affect how other client and customer are going to face the negotiation process with you to
True.
buy products, to continue enhancing demand, or to continue enhancing supply. And here is nowadays there are countries I can tell you, for example, I have some colleagues working in central banks and economics and offices in South America, Latin America. They call it the Chinese virus. You know, they don't call it the COVID. So that is an important component right now that can create a massive lack of confidence in
Indeed.
terms of products, in terms of business, in terms of the culture, how companies make business. Okay, this is one side. Okay, of course, China plays an important role in many economy. The interconnection is huge. We are talking about here logistics, supply chain. We are calling manufacturing products. We are talking about technology, supplying chips and components for the IT companies worldwide. Of course, here the problem is the interconnection. Okay, the interconnection. So for China right now is to balance the negative risk, the downside of risk because of the coronavirus, because of the lack of confidence, the reputational risk, and keep enhancing the interconnection, okay? The
Yes, right.
interconnection with the rest of the economy. That is one point, okay? And Resham mentioned that this is the internal strategy China need to follow, okay? Because externally, still the tariff problems is going to be there. It's not going to disappear. Probably it's going to be exacerbated because of the issue. Okay. Now, India. India is, according to the last report that I, of course, because my background is more financial economics, and I've been following, for example, the UBS report, one of
Right.
the worldwide asset management and financial institution worldwide. They said, the strength of India is
Right. And there is some issue with your internet connection. I think you were sharing a wonderful point on that. I think why don't I, Professor Chaudhary, if you can make your phone in the horizon, keep your phone in the horizontal format, I think you'll be able to see more. So Professor Ujjwal K Chowdhury is Pro VC at Adamas University. Yes, Dr. Elvis, you were sharing your views. I think there was some internet connection with it.
okay.
So risk is one factor. The other factor
Yes.
you were going to share.
He's back now. He's
Yeah.
back now.
Sorry. I lost a little bit the connection. But what I'm saying now for India is how they are going to manage. Right now in China, there are, because of the reputational risk, lack of confidence, all this negative branding around the Chinese virus, not the coronavirus. I'm not. I'm being objective in this area. Many companies from China are looking for immediately new locations. The new location is India because of the labor condition, the land condition, the political and the stability. They are going to migrate to India. But India right now is, okay, how I manage that opportunity, because that opportunity is going to keep me, giving me the opportunity to be in a competitive edge for reviving the world economy, but at the same time, I need to solve the internal problem. The internal problem is right now losing, reducing employment rate, unemployment rate, increasing unemployment rate
Yeah.
because of the coronavirus. Many companies are now hiring and firing people, and at the same time, that's working from home policies as well is undermining productivity, is undermining the capability of continue producing and enhancing demand and supply. So for India is, okay, right now I have the opportunity, the massive opportunity to surpass
Okay, so
China.
you mean to say that India has edge over China because of
Yes,
some risk factor for China
yes,
and some advantages, geopolitical or internal economic advantages that India has. I want to have a quick message from Professor Chaudhary because he has a meeting and
yeah.
we'll have to go.
That's
Professor
okay.
Chaudhary, so
Thank you.
yeah.
I just finished my meeting, so I'm late.
Okay.
So we can be here. I have missed out the earlier part of the discussion, so I do not know. Maybe I'll be repeating some of the points which have been already told. Before even thinking who will be the savior of the world economy, India or China or ASEAN, the first thing that we need to understand is that we have to go through two phases before someone can actually drag the recessionary economy that is going to follow now worldwide, drag it up. So before that two phase one, containment and stabilization of the situation. So at this point of time, China has an edge on the containment and stabilization because they have already returned to production. Yuan has been cleaned up, and they have already taken away their hospital. I mean, dismantled the hospital that they created, 10,000 bed hospital. So they have an edge. Now, cases increasing daily in case of China is not even, I think, 3 or 4. 5, 10, such cases are increasing. So stabilization and containment they have come into. Vietnam or some of the ASEAN countries never had a major problem so much.
Right.
Whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Philippines, whether it's Vietnam, did not have a much of a problem. But that is also a fear that it is not totally gone there. In case of Indonesia, the the testing is very low. It is not even 300 people tested on every million. In case of Philippines, it's 800 people tested on million. India has also very low, 500 people tested on million. So we do not know whether India or ASEAN countries have actually reached their, stage 3 and exhausted the growth curve and flattened. So we totally don't know this. Only the next 2-3 weeks will tell where are we going in these countries. But as on today, on phase 1 factor, because China was the first country to be infected, so there is a containment and stabilization in China is there. Phase 2, economic recovery. China has taken the first few steps on economic recovery. India is yet to take. Vietnam did not have much of a problem so much, but the whatever impact on the economy has happened is still not recovered in that sense. China has given 4% of the GDP, which is 13 trillion GDP, $13 trillion GDP, for the sake of recovery. India has so far given 1% of the 3 trillion, less than $3 trillion economy. So we have to see whether the economic recovery happens. And economic recovery, the recovery is in both fronts, public health and economy, both fronts. So what is important? Yes, there are some open strengths of India, no doubt. Strength is English language spread is quite common in India in comparison to China or even the ASEAN countries to an extent. There are pockets in ASEAN countries, Singapore or part of Philippines or the capital. But in general, English is quite well spoken in India. Technology knowledge, India is known to be in technology knowledge. Similarly, China is also very strong in technology knowledge. IT hub, India has been known to be a knowledge hub, IT hub and all. Service sector acumen, service sector experiences, the best practices or good practices, in that also India is strong. India is a democratic country, whatever might be limitations of our democracy, but still democratic country, elected government. And it's a well-networked country in that sense. But there are also certain threats and weaknesses. And that is where the focus has to be. One, bureaucracy, a nation of bureaucrats, a big bureaucracy network, and ease of doing business, though has been somewhat better, still there are challenges on ease of doing business. We do not have so much of special economic zone, low public investments, large population, and a large population which is below poverty line. And through this economic crisis, furthermore going below poverty line. So whereas population and young population is an asset, and India is very young, 54% of the people are below 25 years, 67% of the people are below 35 years. So it's a very young nation. There are benefits of that. But if a young nation is extremely poor and not very well skilled, then there are challenges. So
Right.
we have an advantage and a challenge. Public investments also challenge. Factories, okay, we can come back once again.
Yeah, we will come back.
Yes.
So we have an advantage, but we also have challenges. I now want to give some small facts before I go to the next question. China is definitely an unprecedented country. So China is not just any regular country, because we have seen what China can achieve. We have seen what Japan can achieve. Because we have seen what South Korea has achieved. We have seen what ASEAN countries can achieve. Because these are unprecedented, not like regular countries like India, Nepal, or Bangladesh. I am not undermining their contribution or their power or potential to revive their GDP growth, but being a global growth engine needs more than your personal capability. It needs some unprecedented qualities that you need to have. Let me share some basic facts about the some competitive advantage of China and some disadvantages. Just like Dr. Elvis has very rightly mentioned, China is certainly suffering a credibility crisis. I think now this question I'm going to put in a very subtle manner, but before that, let me just give some facts. So the factories and shops nationwide in China have started opening from late January. So when we are talking here, China has already started all their factories, all their shops, and most of their manufacturing. 80%, Chinese 80% of the manufacturing is back in China. Urban traffic, powerhouse, and other indicators of daily life is like half normal. 65% are operating at that level. Now, more than 90% of the industrial companies are almost running from March 17. So see here the difference. That China has already started their companies. Their the manufacturing has started. Their industrial companies like small MSMEs, SMEs companies have started at 65% operation capacity. Then 95% of other industry companies from the provinces, they have started. The second question, there was a survey done by C9 Hotel Watch and delivering Asia Communications. It had a small sample data though, and it says that 53% of Chinese, they want to travel abroad now. Now, I don't know about the other countries, but there is a panic that we don't want to travel right now. But the China is thinking on the other way. Almost half of their population are thinking that we will go aggressive traveling. And that is where Thailand is trying to capitalize on that. So Thailand is collaborating with China, saying that, please give maximum of your tourists who are traveling to come to India. On the other, MIT Technology Review says that American GDP will fall by 30 to 50%. This is one small background that I have given. The other background that I want to give here now is the GDP. So if you see uh, the GDP of different countries, and the most crucial question, and the third question, Dr. James Nedumpara, I think will be able to share. Dr. James Nedumpara is the professor and director at CTIL at IIFT, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, expert in the foreign trade and global export area. I think I will come to this part. China was the global leader of global supply chain, was the leader in driving the world export and global trade. Now, what, Professor Nadumpara, I want to come to you. What do you think would be the situation now or the future of global trade post-corona or during corona, and how will China be able to contribute in this from here, and India, vis-a-vis India?
Right. So, Akram, I think my own feeling is that international trade is going through perhaps the worst period. It was already going down. The projections for 2020 were around 2.5%, but the calculations or the predictions have been completely proven wrong. So my own feeling is that the future of international trade will also depend upon how the world economies will be able to manage this crisis. Some people believe that this crisis is now actually peaking. Maybe by May middle or by the end of May, we'll be able to control this crisis. The problem is that it all depends upon how quickly we can actually come back to normal life. This kind of complete lockdowns may disappear. That is actually our expectation at this moment by the middle of May, or maybe by the end of May. So we can think about, I think, the revival of international trade only from June onwards. Until that time, the major trade will be in PPEs, in essential medical devices, pharmaceutical products. In these areas, there will be a heavy demand in the future. But at the same time, we have to understand that some of the sectors, like the aviation sector, the tour and travel sector, the banking sector, the retail sector, some of these sectors will be going for a tremendous hit. And it all depends upon the ability of countries to provide significant financial stimulus. So, I mean, many people in this discussion spoke about the increasing unemployment situation. Definitely, I mean, unemployment will become a major problem. So that's why it all depends upon the ability of the governments to actually to provide financial stimulus. And in that area, I think all the developing countries have a major problem. So China, to that extent, can continue to provide. Their state capitalist mode of economic policy can really help in bailing out companies. But India may have a difficulty. Most of the ASEAN countries may have a difficulty. Even European countries will have a major difficulty going forward. So my feeling is that when we think about international trade, at the moment, most of the countries will have to provide financial stimulus in order to keep their service sectors, especially the sectors which I mentioned, like the banking sector, the aviation sector, the real estate sector. These sectors will have to be preserved and protected, and employment in the sectors will have to be protected at all costs. Then we can think about an international trade issue. So as I think one of the panel participants mentioned, in January, there was a major trade deal between the United States and China. And that particular trade deal was supposed to kickstart the economy. So now my own feeling is that now China may not be able to comply with the obligations undertaken under the trade deal. So that is it. So trade deals may not have much of a value at the moment, and the countries will have to take all kinds of measures. I think financial measures, monetary measures to keep these economies intact. And again, I think we can actually disassociate, life from livelihood. So assuming that we actually open up these sectors, what will happen? Sometimes it can, trigger a problem again. And secondly, most of the people are, experiencing some kind of a second wave of this epidemic or maybe pandemic. So even if we control it for the time being, if we really open up the economy, it can come back in a major way. So that is why I think there are so many challenges to it, and international trade should be the least priority for the time being.
So, what role can China play in the global trade now? What would be the amount of contribution that China can continue, or can China remain, or will China remain be the leader in global trade?
So I think with respect to China, there's a tremendous problem at the moment because the China is actually the world's factory. And if you look at all the sectors, let me think about the steel sector. There is significant amount of overcapacity within China. So China can't actually say China will have to only maybe produce only 25% of their capacity. So that means there will be inventory piling here. So all these economies who are actually have significant amount of capacity will have to shut down the capacity to an extent. That may also lead to retrenchment. Laying your staff or employees. So that's why I said the role of the government will be extremely important. China may have a role in the present crisis in terms of providing a lot of medical equipment or testing kits, or even So this is one area where China can really contribute. China can help the world. This is one area where India can also be a major player because India is a major exporter of generic products and generic drugs and pharmaceutical items. So India should also, actually try to help these kind of sectors, like the pharmaceutical sector, the chemical industry, for that matter. These sectors can take an advantage during this particular time period, but not all sectors. Maybe for the automobile industry, they will be going through a tough phase in the next 1 or 2 months. The same thing with the real estate. So there are many sectors which are actually facing a major crisis. I didn't mention about the hotel industry. There is a huge amount of capacity in their industry, and how these industries will be able to actually even pay off their debt. That is a major crisis. Again, banking sector. So the continuation of this particular problem can lead to some kind of a default, corporate default as well as individual default. So that is why the government. So this is actually we are actually going into an era of big government. It all depends upon the ability of the governments to really sustain these kind of sectors. So that is why I said international trade, of course, is a major component in modern times. But at the moment when we have got travel bans, when we have got
Right.
the priority. But at the same time, yeah.
Professor
So
Nedumpara, I want you please stay with us for a couple. I know you were busy. You are training some government officials. You have some issue programs right now, but I want to share some important points. So now here, as we are talking, this is a question to all our panelists here. Consumption is going to be the key. Consumption means whether it is public spending or public expenditure, or private investment or private expenditure. This is going to be the key. Now, given the fact that here these are the forex reserve of different countries. China leading the way. China has more than $3 trillion forex reserve. Japan has $1.25 trillion reserve. Then Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, India is fourth with $471 billion. But this figure has also gone down now. Hong Kong, Russia. So here, this clearly shows that China has more spending power, as I understand the economics. Then, if you see the GDP, America's, as per the latest IMF report, America's GDP in nominal GDP is $22 trillion. It says the India's GDP is $3 trillion, $3.22 trillion. It says, and this is quite surprising according to our thinking earlier. Then China's GDP is $15 trillion. These are a couple of facts I want to just share to have your view. Who has more spending power? As we say that during this lockdown, cash is the king. So is the spending power of the economies. How do you see that which country can spend more and boost their internal growth as well as the foreign growth? Maybe Dr. Thapa, you can start with this. So if you can unmute, yeah.
Yeah, you pick the right point. Sometimes size effect, definitely size matters. Then in 2008-9 crisis as well, then since then China was also quite bigger than other economies where impact was already normal. Then they used their strength, they used their forex reserve at that time as well. And not only that was the point. Basically, they increased their aggregate demand, domestic aggregate demand as well, buying capacity as well. On top of it, they invested outside as well. And on top of it, they treated each and every, not each and every, most of the crisis ridden countries, they invested their money. Like we can pick the example of they bought 300 large size you know Airbus from France, and that way they can really use their big size money to boost other economies as well. Not only international trade, definitely international trade is key. On top of it, they have a size impact. And now, as you rightly pointed out, and Professor Ujjwal as well rightly pointed out, now China already looks like they are in saturation of this COVID-19 thing. Yeah, the total number of cases are something like 700 today only one death or something like that. But in case of other part of the world, rising economies, mostly BRICS countries and including India, then we don't know whether it will saturate somewhere in China's scale, something like 80,000, or it will really boost up. We don't know. Assumption is then sooner or later, if best case, if India also settles down of this corona outbreak, and sooner or later in 1 month's time with the minimum casualties, if we assume in that way, then definitely we have to pick another point of international trade. Then different type of, as earlier Elvis pointed out and professors pointed out now as well, then the new dimension of international trade or agreements will appear now. I don't know about in the global scale, but smart countries, I would say, like Singapore and New Zealand already agreed certain type of food and food supply chain related agreements. Then Canada and Chile are agreeing something different thing. GCC countries and South Africa already agreed something in every week or so. Some new dimensions of international trade or agreements are happening. If keeping this in mind, if India and China puts their strength together now, assuming that it will be all right, China is 1 month ahead of this corona outbreak, assuming that, then picking another point from this global input output table data as we analyze, the kind of value addition, each other's value addition of China and India, though they do the big trade, but the value addition of their international trade is not within Asia. So if they think of collaborating within Asia, ASEAN, India, China, then the value addition share of that international trade, if they really can add more value of international trade, then that would be the game-changing turning point. Otherwise, what happens is whoever does better, then the first round of benefit of international trade goes to the first world where they invest the money. And these days, the concept of development would be changed. Then not only recently new research has come out, not only this tangible capital matters these days. In terms of tangible capital, definitely China has more capital. In terms of consumption and other kind of value addition point of view, South Asia and ASEAN has more points. Then right from service to other kind of raw materials. Now, the idea would be this crisis, how India, China in general, and other Asian countries think about generating the intangible capital. Tangible capital, definitely they are better. Then intangible capital point of view, now how other part of the world, mostly Eastern Europe and Western Europe and US and Canada, they are better off in intangible capital. So now this is the time to convert our capital into intangible capital from research and development. Then they cannot always win the game by just selling the masks and the ventilators. We have to convert it into the patent right type of thing. So if we convert or they convert into like intangible capitals, this is the turning point to lead the world through the research and development, creating the intangible capital, and some other type of dimensions are also changing globally now. For example, say remittance. We cannot ignore remittance. It being South Asia, then definitely we cannot ignore the remittance. What's happening is remittance, one part is only the volume of money that remit. The another one is the movement of international labor is definitely changing, significantly changing. Now, keeping that point in mind, when we, India, China, or those possible leading economies right from Vietnam to Indonesia, if we can tap off that mobility, different type of mobility or change of international labor, then we can really create the base for the economy, I guess. It is not one sort of game. It is not one sort of just selling one sort of game as well. Then it is possible. If Asian countries join hands together, it is possible to not only revive the global economy from this crisis, on top of it, remaining certain leading role as well. Not only like, uh,
Excellent. Thank you.
trade
Professor,
only, right?
a lot of your fans are saying namaste to you. And actually, they were looking forward to your the speech. Now, Professor Chaudhary, you wanted to say something.
Yeah.
The point, yeah, you can add, and then I have another angle actually to put it. Right.
I am building up on a very beautiful point that Mr. Resham Thapa has just now said, tangible versus intangible. So, in the sense of tangible capital, China is far ahead than ASEAN countries and India, very clearly. But intangibles, there is a different scenario here. And at this point of time, the reputation of China in the Western world is at an ebb, and they are sending their bills to China as well. So it is very important to see. I understand China is the supply chain of the world, and it will not be so easy. They are the manufacturing unit of the world, but it won't be so easy to shrug off China for the economies in the West. But the faith on China has been dented very heavily. And in this faith being dented, India has an opportunity, in my opinion. In ASEAN countries, unless they present a combined economic package, unless they present a combined face, it is not easy for negotiating with the ASEAN countries, country by country. So the chances of India, I understand, I have told earlier, there is bureaucracy and ease of doing business problem. And if the public spending in India increases, please also note the higher ratio of GDP from domestic market in India outweighs China. 69% of India's GDP is from domestic market. 42% of the Chinese GDP is from domestic market. China is dependent for 58% of its GDP on world trade. As a panelist has rightly said, world trade is getting a dent, getting a downfall, and the reputation of China at this point is not great. Though some dependence will be there, but the world would be open to newer ideas, newer areas of factories being opened up, evolved between the West and China. If India can very subtly take advantage of it by liberalizing its economy, by decreasing its bureaucracy, increasing ease of business, increasing public spending, boosting domestic demand, domestic consumption, if all this can be done and providing such economic zones, it would be a benefit for India.
Point is taken. We
Right?
don't know that what India has to do. My point is that China has $3 trillion, and Dr. Elvis is listening very patiently since then, and then I'll come to Dr. James. China has immense spending power, and spending is the king. Is going to be the king here also. Soft powers are definitely going to come. That is, but your view on this? Do you think that any other economy, India's biggest challenge is going to be spending? India can't spend now that much money. It is already tired now feeding its people. How can India spend? Dr. Elvis?
Well, I'm coming back. Can you listen?
Yes, very much.
Yes,
Please.
perfect. I'm coming back again. How agile is, of course, cash is king, expenditure is king as well. So China has a massive power, and the interconnection with the world is massive. Okay. However, right now it's not only the supply. I'm really keen to expand, and that is fine, and that is going to be a really huge variable for opening again the negotiation with China. The other problem is the other side, is the confidence, okay? And lack of confidence implies what are the new regulations countries, for example, in Europe right now, many policy advocates are discussing, okay, we need to make it stronger the policies and the regulation to bring Chinese products, to bring to in customs, to analyze food, to analyze commodities, to analyze different products. That is not going to be really fast to easy that process. Okay, and that is my point right now. Is of course India has important internal capabilities, of course, as Professor Ujjwal mentioned, occur. There are internal problems, but the problem is how agile is India right now to manage that problems they have, because the opportunity is there, and there is no doubt India has a competitive edge because companies right now they are visualizing I'm going to have new controls in the borders. I have a new regulation that are going to regulate the Chinese commodities, products, services, and so forth. So I need to reallocate quickly. And the immediate market for us are India or Africa, but India is closer, is there. So we need to go in that environment. Is India enough flexible for taking that opportunity? That is the question I have right now. Because
Right.
companies, in order to reduce risk, they need to do something really fast.
Dr. James, I think he has a meeting. I'll take Dr. James' point here, and then I'll ask the last question. Maybe. Dr. James.
Yeah, thank you, Akram. So I think as Professor Chowdhury rightly mentioned, China is more of an export-led economy than India is. So India's focus is still on the internal market. So when you really look at the global situation, China will be heavily dependent upon the kind of demand elsewhere. And this is something where China cannot do anything. It all depends upon how other countries actually adjust and tackle this particular crisis. At the same time, I also agree with everyone that the confidence in China has been substantially dented, or you can say eroded. And when we really look at some of the essential supplies, most of the countries realize that they should have supply chains, at least with respect to some of the essential commodities. And my own feeling is that most of the governments will actually try their best in order to move the supply chains in their own domestic economy. So a substantial amount of investment can happen in most of the countries. And in the case of India, if it happens, it will be good for the Indian economy because we can actually create more employment. We can also make India less dependent upon China or maybe other countries for that matter. So it all depends upon what kind of measures we do in the future and what kind of investment activities we actually support in the future. Secondly, again, what will happen globally is not actually within our hands only. For India, our service sector is extremely competent. Some of the service sectors may not be that much affected by this particular crisis. So if you look at the technology sector, the technology sector stocks are doing pretty well because this is actually a time where they can leverage their advantage. But if you look at commodity-based industries, they are being really hit. And this is one area where China can be impacted because it is more of a commodity-driven country when compared with India. India is much more focused on services. So this is a time where we have to actually leverage our strength, our advantage in service-led growth. And if we can put in place the right infrastructure within the country and the right kind of government incentive, we can try to actually manage this crisis much better than other countries do.
Excellent. Last and final question, and maybe with your concluding remarks. 3-4 questions I'll club actually, and Dr. Thapa can basically answer. Now here, the crux that Germany has fined $165 billion on China as a compensation. America, Trump is thinking the same, and he's not going to shy away from it. He will definitely put a huge burden on China as a compensation package for it. Most of the European countries are going to follow that soon. India has already imposed a lot of bans. There is a lot of panic and fear about Chinese investment and Chinese money or companies who are already doing business in India and future companies who are going to invest in India. Chinese, on the other hand, handling this crisis, the diplomatic age that China is more of a reactive. He's giving a reactive response, not a very diplomatic, mature, and proactive. its response to many of the European countries, its response to India, its response to America is not very diplomatically polite and convincing. It's more aggressive. So if it is aggressive during World War II, we know that the amount of money that Germany still is paying to compensate the Jews killing that there. America doesn't want China to be the superpower. Neither does Europe, nor does India. Neither China or US or Europe wants India to be the superpower. No one is going to see anyone as superpower. It is only that everyone wants to be the superpower. Here in this game, are we going to see a multipolar world, or the real end of global superpowers? Because America, by all resources and means, will no longer remain to be the superpower of the world, whether it is economic or soft or any, because Chinese movies are much more appealing now these days, war movies, than the American ones. So soft power wise, so there will be a lot of competition. Who will be the superpower? How will China fight this big game of this compensation one? And your concluding remarks on this.
Yeah, definitely. We can see a couple of years been like China is no more with silent diplomacy. They're aggressive diplomacy these days. So these days, a kind of diplomatic circle people talks about tiger is no more tiger and elephant is no more elephant as well. So tiger is different and elephant is different. I mean, India also plays a very different role these days, and China definitely do. Then your point is very true. Everyone want to be superpower, but someone want to be superpower and you have potential or not. Two different aspects we have to think. And regarding Chinese issues, so relative to Germany, you spelled and some other countries, and relatively, what I feel these days is. Uh, in a soft power point of view as well, after US, China definitely developed a lot of soft power as well. The issue is not that level of English type of speaking soft power. You mean like language issues? They develop in language as well. In other kind of softwares, soft powers, China really developed the soft powers. I can give simple example beyond China, beyond America, let's say, and I guess couple of universities cannot survive in England without China, for example, say, right? So in France, similar thing happens. Portugal, similar thing happens. In Greece, similar thing happens. South America, Elvis knows more in South American debt market, buying debt market and European market as well. In some of the African countries, they say, debt-ridden companies, they bought and kind of stuff. In that way, they already developed soft power as well. So it's not easy for them as well. The issue is, let's be a little bit realistic now, right? Then regarding this recent crisis, this COVID-19, then they face the problem first, and looks like their concentration of infection is in certain concentration only, not spread like everywhere, like other part of the country. So it helped them to really be disciplined way of lockdown. That's how they are successful. Then other part of the countries, even if they really fight against them successful, then it will take time. In that point, they are in competitive age now. And another point would be in case of China, not only productive point of view in the production, only not only like a commercial kind of goods, and they really are clever of playing with US other part of the game. They can easily play certain kind of game with US through dollar game. So they have that sort of power as well. So keeping all these things in mind, let's see how it reflects then. Yeah, I'm concluding this way. See, there's some of the projection, I may be wrong, but I just speak from some of the websites. I don't like to mention all of them. Then in a couple of quarters to 1 year, 2 quarter to 4 quarter projection is global growth is going to be less than 1%. In best case would be 0.9%. America will be growing by 0.2 to 0.3% is only, far below than their long years, average. Then India will grow by 2 quarter, 3 quarter, 1.5% to 3% only, not that bad. And China is almost touching zero or sometimes 0.2 to 1% of the growth. Let's think that four scenarios. Having said that, and the size of the economy you talked about, then for this preparation phase, emergency phase, how they did it. But this emergency kind of policy responses, I just reviewed from this Oxford University's this policy response guideline there. They are really compiling the policy responses from all the countries. And looks like China is already investing 2.5% of the GDP. and other countries nearly reach that volume. Like forget about the total amount of money, but as a percent of GDP, they are so serious. Out of that 1.3 percentage of GDP, they already injected in the system, right? On top of it, in monetary side as well, 2.37 trillion money already injected in the system. They are so proactive to revive their economy, and they identified their strength this time. They identified that they are going to survive or inject first time in SMEs, not large industries. See, some strategy here, not large industries like 2008-9 crisis. They are really focusing SMEs, and regarding the, to maintain the balance of payment as well. So they increase this macro prudential cross-border financing scale 25% is up. They are very focused this time and differently focused than previous crisis. On top of it, let's think of India. We are more relying on monetary policy. I don't know why. Fiscal policy, fine, 0.8% of the Indian GDP. We are planning to inject it. Sooner or later, it will go to the system. But in monetary system, we are injecting 3.7 trillion IC. It means 1.8% of GDP. So I don't know how we'll control our inflation and kind of thing. I don't know why India is more relying on monetary policy for this quarter of injection or what, initial response. I'm quite confused about it. Then regarding the balance of payment maintenance as well, the corporate bonds investment limit is increased by 15% only. They are not talking about macro prudential thing. So strategically, initial 1 month or 2 months, this game of these economic policies, they look more focused. They have size. They look more focused, and other countries have potential, but they look more focused. Maybe they are beginner for this, COVID-19 situation as well. I don't know why they looked more focused, and they're really serious about the policy and they injected it. That's how, in the long run, situation would have been different. We can analyze, but short period of time, whatever can be done, they look very serious than other economies,
Okay.
right? That's
Yeah.
how, right from the beginning, they are powerful in soft power, they are aggressive economy, they know the world now. On top of it, they looked very serious about the short-run policies as well. So definitely, I'm not sure 100% they will win, but China has their stake to lead the economy again. And they can really create positive externalities to other part of the world as well. The one idea would be really trying to share the value addition of this global trade with India and other part of the world. That is going to be win-win situation for India, China, if not big countries, otherwise Asian countries as well. So the Asian, this crisis, the positive part of this this COVID-19 would be the beginning of the Asian leadership. And how serious are those leaders? Then let's see.
What about the damage compensation that different countries are asking?
I don't think they can really penalize. How to justify it is like a strategic game only, and they are really powerful in some other multinational organizations like the UN and other part of the world. It is a strategic power only. Based on it, I'm 100% sure. And based on it, Germany will ask to buy certain things. China will buy something from Germany, and China will again buy some Boeing or some Airbus from India and China and France.
Okay.
France and America, and again, this is a bargaining tool only. Their expectation is not China is going to pay money or something like that. America will just bargain about dollar thing only,
Oh,
not really replacing the dollar. That's what I think.
okay.
Well,
Concluding
well,
remark.
well,
We have developed.
Russia almost covered all the ideas, but well, what can well, you mentioned really nice, Akron. That's of course this there is a reorganization of main players around the world. Okay,
Absolutely.
definitely China has a competitive edge because it's a huge spending power. Okay, that is huge. That is the probably the most negotiating advantage in terms of any discussion with any other countries. Of course, China, the spending power is huge, and that is going to keep them in the leadership negotiation strategy. Okay, that is one. However, all the economy need to revamp, and as you know, the commodity that is going to help to revamp these economies, of course, is energy, oil and gas. Okay,
Right.
and here, independently of the oil and gas turmoil, the crisis right now, oil and gas is going to be the commodity that is needed for revamping the world economy again, to revive the economy. Okay, and here is also how these guys, not only around coronavirus and all the diplomacy and all these type of things, we need to understand a little bit that China has, like you mentioned, spending power, but also is talking closely, negotiating closely with Russia. And doesn't mean these two main guys are going to influence as well, try to buffer the negative impact of coronavirus in order to inject this commodity to boost the economy again. Okay, that is important. However, United States is not working alone. Okay, right now they are playing and strengthening their relationship with Mexico, Brazil, and other oil and gas producers as well. So we need to understand a little bit the dynamics there. Okay, and as well the role of Africa in this new perspective. Africa, as you know, probably because of the weather condition, the environmental condition, have not been impacted a lot because of the coronavirus, and they have been really serious implementing the lockdown policies as well. Okay, so here, India, I think I'm not biased here. I have a really nice feeling because India can be a really, really good guy and a strong guy in this economic outlook. Definitely they need to solve the internal problem, but the good strategy around here, India is not playing the bad diplomacy with any other country. Is quite open, is friendly, is able to negotiate in Europe, in United States, even with the similar Chinese companies, and as well Africa. So here, of course, China, like you mentioned, China start operating the manufacturing. They are bringing again the labor, the economy, and so on. But I really believe that if India do these type of things nicely, in good order, it's going to be a really good opportunity for them to be.
Right. This if question is always there. So here I want to conclude the entire session. Thank you so much, Dr. Elvis. Thank you so much, Dr. Thapa, for sharing, Resham, for sharing excellent views. Viewers, this is an unprecedented moment, and post-corona, the economic circle, economic structure will also change. China has always shown its resilience. So is South Korea, so is Japan. But South Korea and Japan, they have reached to a point from where they cannot be a bigger power anymore, bigger economy anymore. They cannot be economic superpower. China is almost a $15 trillion economy. America is $22 trillion economy. America's GDP will go down. China, the way they have started, they will definitely cross America very soon. So by 2023, according to the IMF report, till or World Economic Forum, till 2023, America will grow negatively. Yani America will take time till 2023 to recover. On the other hand, China will be on a positive growth model from second quarter of 2020 only. That or third quarter max fourth quarter of 2020. So that's the difference between China and America. On the other hand, India certainly has huge intangible or soft power, which has taken India way ahead. China has a very hard power. China's manufacturing, business, trade, investment is absolutely strong. I think that China has the advantage. Now it needs to inculcate that soft power or soft diplomacy to be the big power or superpower in the world, or to revive the world, or to be the savior of the world growth. But overall, Asia is certainly going to be the gainer or savior of the world. Thank you so much. Keep watching the Policy Times. If you have not subscribed our channel, do subscribe. Thank you so much, Dr. Resham and Dr. Elvis, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Just 2 minutes. Okay, done. so much. It was very nice. Oh, last there is